2016 has come and gone. What started out with a few highs ended up with a lot more lows than I would have wanted to admit. Before I start off with the top 5 games that I personally played for this year, I would first like to give a few honorable mentions. The first thing I'd like to point out about these honorable mentions is that honestly, a few of these could have actually ended up in my top 5 for these games this year, but from a combination of me just not giving it as much time as I would have, or other things getting in the way, whether it be work or anything else, I ultimately ended up not giving it the time that I would have wanted to. That doesn't mean that these games were bad or not as good as the ones that are in my top 5. It just, circumstances happened and I didn't get to give them the proper amount of love or a proper amount of time that I would have wanted to. The first game I'd like to talk about in my honorable mentions is Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Now, this is a game that came out on the same day as another title that's actually in my top 5. That's a good enough hint to give you which one that one is if you look up the release dates. Now, I was a really big fan of Deus Ex Human Revolution when it came out a few years back. And when I heard that there was going to be a sequel, a direct sequel nonetheless, my hype was through the roof. Improved visuals, much better combat mechanics, the stealth being improved, like everything was going to be much better. Deus Ex Mankind Divided delivered on all fronts. Sadly, because of another title that came out on the same exact day, I didn't exactly give it as much time as I would have wanted to. So, overall, while I did enjoy it very much in the time that I did spend with it, which I do need to come back into and get back into playing it some more, I will definitely place it in my honorable mentions for one of the best games of this year. The second game I'd like to talk about for the honorable mentions is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Shark FE. Now, this is a game that a lot of people had a very, very negative perceptions for when it was first officially announced. While it was first somewhat announced as Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, the hype was through the roof, and everyone was expecting basically more or less an actual true crossover between two brands together of Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem. Well, let's be frank, all people really wanted was frickin' Persona characters with Fire Emblem. But, we ended up getting something kind of in the way of what they actually wanted, it's not the specific characters they wanted in there together, interacting with one another. However, when I seen the official announcement as well as the strikingly high production values and the visuals the game had as the debut trailer and then the upcoming other trailers and video gameplay, I was actually excited for it. And when it finally released for the Wii U on June, I right away started cracking at it. This is one of the games that I actually ended up completing it, but sadly, compared to the other games that overall ended up being in my top 5, it's one of those really good titles out there, but just wasn't, like, it just didn't scratch right at the end to be that, like, absolute top 5. That does not mean it's a bad game, it's just that in the overall sense, when I look when you see the actual list, overall sense, it's just that it wasn't just up there at the very top, but it's still very good. I'd consider it maybe like a top 10. If I had a top 10 list, it would be in there for sure. The next honorable mention would be Dragon Ball Fusions, a strange but really quirky RPG on the 3DS that came out not too long ago for North America, but actually it was out for Japan about a few months before that. It's where I got most of my playing time from. It's actually surprisingly better than I was expecting it to be, and after how utterly repulsively bad Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 was, which quite frankly I don't understand how that even got a sequel in the first place, considering how bad the first one was. But anywho, that's for another discussion. Dragon Ball Fusions was a really charming little game. It's very fun to play, but much like Deus Ex, I just didn't put as much time into it as I would have wanted to. But for when I did get to play of it, I seen a very good, very promising, very strong game behind it. If you haven't got a chance to try it out yet, definitely put it in your radar. Like, give it a try every now and then. Even if it's on the 3DS, which shouldn't really be a a stopping gap. If some people try to give that kind of excuse of, oh, it's on the 3DS, so I shouldn't take it seriously, or it's not really that great of a game, even though there's a lot of amazing titles on the handheld. The last two titles I want to say for my honorable mentions which came out not too long between each other. One even came out not a few days back as of this recording. One would be Final Fantasy 15 and Shantae Half Genie Hero. These are both titles that I haven't gone too much time into, invested, because they've come out not too long ago and just haven't completed them. But from what I've had been able to track in both of them, they are like exceptional games, very, very good games. Both were definitely worth the wait that they took to come out. I just haven't had enough time to complete them yet to give a proper like judgment for them. But what I have tried so far, they're both exceptional games. Like they would definitely have been in this list for the top 5 if it weren't for the other titles that are in this list. But definitely if they're the top 10, these would be in the top 10 for sure. Now that that's out of the way, let's begin with the top 5 games for 2016. The first game I'd like to talk about is Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, also known as Armed Blue Gunvolt Soul. Now, if you're someone like me who has been dying for more Mega Man out there or more Rockman out there, and seeing how Capcom hasn't given us any proper, like, true new games, the last thing they gave us was Legacy Collection, which was practically a shoddy emulator with altered ROMs, and you know, Mighty Number 9 being absolutely fucking garbage. This was actually a really good surprise that in the same year that we got the travesty that was Mighty Number 9, we got Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, which actually overall ends up being a much better quote-unquote like Mega Man successor game than the other one likes to portray itself as. Unlike the first game, you actually now have 2 playable characters. But Gunvolt returns once more with his strong chaining lightning powers, and now you can also play as Akira, who plays more similar to an actual, like I guess you could say Rockman or Mega Man character, by actually being able to like just straight up using the gun for actual damage as opposed to chaining combos for his lightning attack, for like Gunvolt's lightning attack. He also actually, when you defeat a boss character, gain abilities similar to them, similar to having like sub-weapons from Robot Masters from the actual Mega Man series. So it's kind of cool how certain bosses have like weaknesses, or they take more damage with certain moves, or just incorporating the different boss weapons for the different getting through stages quickly, or whatever have you for your personal playstyle. The game actually runs at a smooth 60 FPS for the most part on the 3DS, and it's like once you get the hang of it and learn how to play it really well, you'll be zipping through stages like absolutely nothing. Because the game's all about both like getting through stages and just looking like a badass while you're going through it. It's one of those games that if you have a way to show off to your friends, if you end up playing really good, it's one of those games that it's like you get good at this game and then just show off to your friends your crazy skills and rack up that super high score while just crazy like over the top Japanesey like music goes in the background, making you feel like more of a badass as you go through it. It's like basically like you're playing like a 2D platformer like anime. That's the best way I can put it. When you start getting good at it, it's like you're basically playing like a 2D sprite like anime, but it's a Mega Man successor to the game at the same time. Now this is a game that I'm sure everyone expects to be on everyone's top 5 or top 10 lists, and it's Pokemon Sun and Moon. Now, this is a game that I was excited for from day one, the moment it was announced. However, as more like information and news came when it was nearing its release, I became more and more excited for it. Especially since it was doing so much to change the formula in the past 6 generations we've been getting through. And that's one thing that I really commended for Pokemon Sun and Moon. So many like little things here and there, the actual structure of how the game plays. It's no longer about like gym leaders and, oh, you gotta get rid of this team here. Well, there is still an team, but because of the lighter tone for some cases here and there, and the way how the game centralizes on the challenges and trials, it feels like if you're someone who hasn't played a Pokemon game in a long time because you felt that they were getting old, or they're just getting, it's the same thing again and again, this is definitely one of those games that you can come back to and say, yeah, I can come back to Pokemon now. Or yes, it's finally changed enough that I can enjoy it again. I guess my only real like gripe with the game is that because it's much more story based, and the game overall feels a little bit more linear compared to previous entries. And because of it being a little more linear, it kind of tells you where you need to go. You never really feel lost because the game actually has like an objective marker. It's telling you where certain areas on the map you need to get to. So you might sometimes feel like you're being handheld, and the overall difficulty doesn't really ramp up until the final like portion of the game, and the post game obviously. But overall, it's still a wonderful experience. Definitely one of the best games that came out this year. And in my opinion, it's a really hard for me, someone who considers Generation 2 or Gold and Silver and Crystal being my favorite ones of all time. Sun and Moon really makes it hard for me to wonder like which one do I consider my number one favorite generation now. That's how good Sun and Moon was, in my opinion. The third game that I'd like to talk about as one of my top 5 games of the year is the one that I mentioned earlier for the why I did not place Deus Ex Human Revolution as in my top favorites. And this one is the King of Fighters 14, as the announcer likes to say. This is one of those games that, honestly, when it was first announced, I was kind of questioning it. It looked a bit strange. The art direction was like ugly, for lack of a better term. It looked very bad when it first was announced. But as a fan of the King of Fighters from way back in the day until now, as well as a fan of Street Fighter and all other fighting games in general, I was still excited to play it because I felt maybe the graphics aren't going to be great, but the gameplay is where it's at. That's all that matters. And the more information we see, the more trailers, the more everything we for the betas and the demos and stuff, that's where everything matters. That's where it's at. This game delivers on all fronts. While another game out there would decide to release itself unfinished and then maybe decide to patch in things later on as time goes on, King of Fighters 14 came out brimming with content right off the bat. It gave you story mode, it gave you an arcade mode, it gave you working netcode on day one, and still better netcode than fucking Street Fighter 5. Okay, I'm rambling. Anyways, it gives you 50 characters that all play unique to each other. It gives you a balance that's actually really good, despite some slight things that were a little bit wrong that first on launch, got patched right away. Now we're even getting a graphic overhaul patch, and possibly even some more content as well. They haven't given us all the details, coming in January. This is one of those games that it's a shame that not as many people gave it the time that it should have. Because the King of Fighters 14 is, in my opinion, the best fighting game to come out this year. And right now, currently for the PS4, it's the best fighting game to come out right now. If I'm hoping that Tekken 7 keeps this quality, because that's another fighting game I'm really looking forward to as well. Because these are the two that need to be given the love. We need to give our attention not to, just the big name, just Street Fighter 5. No, we should look at these little guys. Like, if you have a chance, go out there, it's really cheap, get King of Fighters 14. Like, give it a chance, play this game right now. It's honestly one of the best fighting games to come out in recent years. And it's definitely one of the best games to come out for the PS4 for this year for sure. It's like dirt cheap. You can probably even find the collector's edition for less than like $30 probably. The next game I'd like to talk about is Overwatch. Now this is a game that from day one I had the feeling was going to amount to greatness. And lo and behold, it certainly did. It is a cooperative team-based multiplayer shooter in the vein of games such as like Team Fortress and Unreal Tournament and so on. It's a very fast-paced, very floaty, crazy action shooter that's it's definitely one that you're gonna have a lot of fun with. I personally was surprised at how colorful it is compared to other multiplayer shooters out there these days. And while some would complain that there isn't much actual single player content, or hell, no single player content at all, I personally feel that if you can make the multiplayer like absolutely phenomenal, then it's alright if it's not, as some would say, a quote unquote complete package. I mean, for it to be real, a lot of shooters out there, people don't really buy them for the single player, or it feels that the single player is tacked on. So when a game like Overwatch comes and says, hey, our multiplayer is complete right off the bat, and we're going to be adding more content as the time goes on for free, unlike other games out there which would have charged you like a season pass or a lot of downloadable content or things like that to expand on its maps and characters and weapons. Overwatch gives you all that for free as soon as you get it right off the bat. Hell, if you really want to, you could buy the game used right now. You have the same amount of base content in terms of like what there is available, not counting cosmetics, as someone who's been playing since day one. No one is ever ahead of someone else, not counting things like cosmetics, like skins, and like taunts and things like that. Those things come, in your own pace. You can either level up for them and get them in loot boxes, or you can pay small microtransactions to get more loot boxes right off the bat. But that's your entire choice. Overall, Overwatch is a very enjoyable game. It's definitely one of the most fun multiplayer shooters I've played in a long time, and I'd definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend it to you if you haven't been delving into the battle as I speak right now. Now, before I talk about our last game for this evening, I'm going to give you a choice. I'll give you some time to think about it, but, choose between these two. And I'll get back to you. By being merciful, you allowed this one to be our choice for this evening. The last game I'd like to talk about for today is Kirby Planet Robo-Rod. A rather surprising choice considering all the other games here, but honestly, when I started sitting down when this game came out not too long back, immediately I started having fun. It's immediately one of the funnest games on the 3DS out there. Brimming with color, brimming with excitement. It takes sharps and turns, not really much in terms of like a plot element, but just the way how its tone changes, how crazy the boss fights end up being, difficulty ramping up, and all the content that's like just filled with content. What you expect from a Kirby or a mainline Nintendo title, just filled with content. It's a blast from beginning to end. It's a really, really fun game to play. Well, I didn't delve into much of the multiplayer portions because I personally never really played too much of the multiplayer for for the Kirby series. The single player alone, it made an impact to me that I said, yeah, this is one of the best games I've played for this year. By choosing to fight, you've broken your shackles from our corporate overlords. By doing that, you have allowed this game to rise above the rest as our actual #1 choice of games that I played for 2016, and that one will be AM2R. AM2R is a remake of Metroid 2 Return of Samus that was released back on the Game Boy many years ago. While it was always considered a very strange title between the original and Super Metroid on Super Nintendo, Metroid 2 was always one that people felt that kind of needed to be remade or needed a bit of an update to feel a little bit better. And the folks who ended up working on it gave us precisely that. They've been working on it for almost 10 years, and what they have delivered to us is one of the best games I've played in a long time. It is, however, very sad that Nintendo did not see it this way. They decided that they wanted to have this game DMCA'd, completely wipe it off the face of the earth. I don't know what's the reason why, or in some sort of strange, warped way of trying to protect copyright or trademarks to the franchise. But I don't know. It's a very muddy situation. I honestly feel that's actually insulting to not only to the people who were developing this game or who developed it, but just fans as a whole. That this is what we wanted. We want a game like this. We want more of this franchise, of the Metroid brand, of the Metroid franchise. We want to be able to delve into the world once again as Samus Aran and explore these crazy planets and worlds, and just get immersed in this like isolated environment and just feel, but at the same time just like become stronger, become more powerful, just get through it all. But what we're given was something like Federation Force, which wasn't a bad game, it's just wasn't what we wanted. But that's something else entirely. This is a time to celebrate what is possibly not only one of the best fan games ever made, but definitely one of the best games we've played for this year for sure. And I'm glad that I had a chance to try this out and complete it 100%. Because this is definitely one of those brands out there, definitely one of those franchises out there that shouldn't be left alone. They shouldn't be forgotten, especially during its 30th anniversary, which somehow Zelda gets all the attention that it got for its 30th anniversary, while nothing was given to Metroid, which was always considered part of that triple branding between Mario, Metroid, and Zelda. So here it is. As my number one choice for 2016, it is AM2R.